Steve Moran here with another episode of Foresight TV. I am really excited to be talking to Larry Gumina. Did I butcher that, Larry?
You spot on, Steve. Spot on.
Great. So we're going to be talking about 100 years history of Ohio living, although I'm going to point out that it's also obvious that Larry is not 100 years old, so he hasn't been there since the beginning. But first, we're going to start with this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. So Larry, welcome.
Hey, thanks.
Our little Foresight TV show. I'm really excited to be talking about what you are doing and who you are and how you see the future. And so why don't we actually start maybe with a little bit about Ohio living and maybe tell us sort of the origin story and where you guys are at today.
Yeah. No, listen, Steve, thanks for having me. Great to be with you. And I'll certainly do that. And you'll tell me when to shut up. But hey, let me first start by thanking you. Thanks for embracing this industry of ours. I know you've been doing this for about 10 years plus, and your passion, we need it. We love it. And I just want to thank you on behalf of who we serve here in Columbus, Ohio, and throughout the state. Ohio Living, we are a faith-based provider of aging services throughout 53 of the 88 counties in the state of Ohio. We are, believe it or not, on Wednesday, Wednesday was actually our 100-year anniversary. 100 years ago on Wednesday the 3rd, we had the deed was transferred in Sydney, Ohio, at Ohio Living Dorothy Love to create a home. And that has mushroomed into 12 aging service or life plan communities spread really throughout the most densely populated areas of Ohio. And then we have a very comprehensive home and community-based service operation that provides end-of-life care, Medicare certified home health, palliative medicine. We have a physician and nurse practitioner vertical. We have a very active foundation. So we have 2,700 team members keeping our mission alive and strong 24/7, 365. And we touch the lives of about 70,000 Ohioans a year. So I'm privileged and honored to be able to lift everybody up and support them as we move this mission forward.
And you have been there, obviously not 100 years. How long have you been there?
I'm aging pretty rapidly, Steve, especially at this time in the industry. But I've been here. I'm in my 11th year. I had my 10th year anniversary was December 28th. So
terrific.
My
I'd actually like to dig a little deeper into your history because just it's sort of a personal. Who was sort of the person that gave you this deed, and what was the mission at that time?
Repeat that question. The person who gave me.
So I'm just really curious about when Ohio Living started 100 years ago. What was sort of the initial inspiration? Usually, there's some person who had a passion. Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's actually a tragic story, but let me kind of flip it around and share the half full side of that tragedy. After the turn of the century, shortly thereafter, there was a little girl named Dorothy Love, who was tragically, Steve, struck by a car and was killed in Sydney, Ohio. And through that, the Russell family in Sydney, Ohio, really embraced this tragedy in this little girl and wanted to create a home for not only children but for older adults. And they donated their property, and a group from the Presbyterian Synod of Sydney, Ohio, got together, and along the way, that's how it started. And Ohio Living Dorothy Love in Sydney is still one of our life plan communities. We're totally focused on serving older adults, not children, but yet, and that's how it started. And I'll tell you, that was a very tragic story, but yet through Dorothy Love's legacy, she has touched the lives of hundreds of thousands of Ohioans throughout the state. And again, if it wasn't for that, sadly enough, we wouldn't have existed. And so
those kinds of stories are always really hard, right?
yeah.
And yet, for me, when I hear stories of beautiful things coming out of tragedies like that, it really warms my heart. I've got a brand new keynote that I'm just putting the finishing touches on, where I talk about leadership. And I actually started out with a terrible, terrible, tragic story, that I really struggled with whether it was the right story, except that it was the right story. And it helped me have some understanding about how to better talk about leadership for people who work in the senior living space. So, that's really, really interesting. So, where do we start? So why don't we let's talk a little bit about how you guys did during the pandemic, what you learned out of the pandemic, and that kind of thing.
Well, let's. Oh, wow! I get all these things firing in my head right now. Where do we start? Steve, I think that we had talent challenges in this industry before the pandemic, and certainly, through this pandemic, and thankfully so, this COVID-19 era is slowly but surely getting in a rearview mirror. But again, we had the talent issues before in this segment of our delivery system, and they were just heightened exponentially throughout the last 23 months, and it's even making more challenging as we have this population swell in front of us. We're in Ohio. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. That's where our mission support office is, and we have 12.5 million people live in the state. We're the sixth most rapidly aging state in the country, and we have talent challenges left and right. So they challenged us exponentially during the last 23 months. We've through the course of that pandemic, we, just like every other provider in our space, have really embraced technology. And I think actually, as a result of that, Steve, we added strength to our mission. And and what I mean by that is gave us some insight into what's next. And what I mean by what's next is that, I think we have an opportunity in this segment of delivery systems to embrace technology and bring technology out to someone's home who is living independently. And through our interventions, hopefully we can optimize their aging experience, whether they live on our campus communities or not. In fact, even more so if they do not. But at a point in time when they need more care, Steve, they come to us and they know Ohio Living. So we're working on that from a technology standpoint. But answer your question, every other provider just got challenged. The experiences that we experience ourselves are not atypical, from talent issues to, we've prevented family members from visiting loved ones. And that to me is the most horrific issue that we experienced.
Yeah. So as you're looking at the talent situation, have you changed what you're doing either in the areas of recruiting or retention?
We have, and we have, just like everybody else, talent, regardless of tax status. Our talent is the underpinning of our mission. Whether you're a not-for-profit provider like we are, or you're a for-profit provider, it's that talent base. And Steve, before we went live, you and I were talking about something you're working on in terms of investing in our frontline team members. We have to do more and more of that. At Ohio Living, I'm real grateful. We have a really, really strong culture. And that's been around for 100 years. We can't rest on that. We got to keep investing in it on a daily basis, if not hourly. And so we're, fourth year in a row, great place to work certified. We got a great culture here in this organization. But we can't do more and more in terms of investing in our existing talent base. And Steve, even more so, proactively going out into the market and introducing this career to team members of tomorrow. Steve, are you getting any feedback from me?
It's just a little bit. I don't know. This happens every once in a while, and there doesn't seem to be an easy fix on it.
Okay, I just apologize for that. Okay.
Yeah, it's minimal, but it's just there. So
okay.
So one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, and I don't know whether this will resonate with you or not. I hope it will. So we were talking a little bit about In-N-Out Burger, right? And we, Denise Boudreau is the one who sort of first got us pointed in that direction, but we've got this relationship, and we're looking at taking some more people back there in the next year or so. And but when you look at the fast food industry right now, as you talked about, there's this huge talent problem, not just senior living, just everybody. You can't hardly go to a fast food restaurant or really any restaurant where you don't see a help wanted sign, right? So I've been thinking a lot about it, and I've been thinking a lot about In-N-Out Burger in particular, and Chick-fil-A. I sort of get a little nervous about Chick-fil-A because there's some political things that sort of sets people's hackle. But but when you look at those two fast food organizations, and they actually are not struggling for staff like Burger King, McDonald's, Carl's Jr.'s, Taco Bell. I'm not going to tell you it's every bit as easy today as it was before, but honestly, they're not really struggling like every other fast food restaurant is, because they have created a very different culture. So I used to believe that the industry needed to really go out and try to figure out how to raise its profile. And I've completely ditched that idea because I think it's an unrealistic idea. But what I do believe is that you in each one of your locations could decide that you're going to be the In-N-Out Burger of senior living in your marketplace. So you become that one place where if somebody's going to be a server in senior living, they're going to be a caregiver in senior living, they're going to be a maintenance person, they're going to be a nurse in senior living, that they're going to come and work for Ohio Living. And then if they can't get a job at Ohio Living because there are no spots or they're not good enough, they're going to go down the road to somebody else. So what that will mean, of course, is that both your retention and your recruitment will become much, much easier. It'll make it worse for your competition unless they do the same thing. And, if we go to this sort of theoretical place where everybody is doing the same thing, then all of senior living would be elevated. It would be a cooler place to work. And I think that it would be much less problems. So I don't know. What do you think?
Wow. I think a couple things. One, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. I think we need to raise our profile in terms of, and let me give you some more words there, Steve. I hail from New Jersey. I was born in New York. I grew up in New Jersey, Jackson, New Jersey. I rode my bike to MediCenter of Lakewood, MediCenter Nursing Home in Lakewood, New Jersey. At 15 years old, I started washing dishes, right? And I don't know, it's probably changed ownership about 100 times right now, but I learned very early at that point in time, I was a dishwasher, right? But I was working as part of a team, providing care and support to people just like us when they needed us the most. Well, went to college. I was going to be a banker, went in the hospitality, and then I've been in healthcare for 31 years. What an awesome, and I'm very blessed with this career I have, and I'm very honored and privileged to be able to support 2,700 team members who provide that care and support. To me, what an opportunity that we have to provide care and support to someone when they need us the most, whether it's short-term episodic or on a long-term basis. So I think that, Steve, whether you're serving a meal in a dining room or you're holding the hand of one of our patients who has remaining moments to live, what an honor, what a blessing to be able to do that. I think we need to articulate that and raise our profile in this industry. The media paints some really bad stories about what we do in this segment of our delivery system. So I think we need to raise our profile. And you know what, Steve? We're in a people business. I firmly believe it's culture. Here's something for a takeaway for the audience. I started doing this about 18 months ago. We have 2,700 team members who hit their milestone anniversary dates, 5, 10, 15, 20, so on and so on. What I'll do before I leave the office, 6, 7 o'clock at night, I'll give them a call at home. And whether it's a STNA or an executive director, I'll call them at home. I'll introduce myself. 9 to 8 times out of 10, they don't recognize the number, so I get a voicemail, right? And I leave a voicemail and I say, hey, it's Larry Gumina. I just want to say thank you for your 5 years of service or your 25 years of service.
Yeah.
What you do makes a difference to us. And on behalf of the board, but more importantly, on behalf of those who we serve, thank you for being what you do, and thank you for being part of our team. Steve, the next morning I'll get an email or I'll get a phone call and say, hey, thanks for reaching out. But you know what? I think through enhancing a culture and strengthening the culture, just like Chick-fil-A. I'm not familiar with that organization, but we're a people business, and wrapping your arms around, metaphorically around our team members and saying, hey, we need to, you're important to us, and you're making a difference every day. And for them to feel valued, I think that's
yeah. So I perhaps it was not quite artful. I believe that raising the image is really, really important. I just think that the industry can't do it. I think the way we do it is because Larry has this vision for making Ohio living the best place to work, where people are excited to come to work every day. And at the end of the day, they go to work, they go home, and they're tired, but they know they accomplished something. And they're actually really excited to go home and work and talk about something difference they made in somebody's life, which means that when they're talking to their significant other, they go, oh man, I love working here. A great day. I can hardly wait to go back tomorrow to do more to change the world tomorrow. And if each individual community, each individual organization were committed to being that kind of thing, that would take care of raising the bar, and we wouldn't have to spend millions. We wouldn't have to spend millions on advertising campaigns or any of those kinds of things. It would become, working in senior living would be a cool thing to do.
I'm with you 100%. I agree with you 110% there, my friend.
Yeah. So let's talk about, I want to come back to technology a little bit. What do you, and let's actually want to sort of, just so I want to make sure we touch both of these things. I'd like to talk a little bit about technology, and I'd like to talk a bit about your philosophy of serving people who are at home and may never come into your community. And so I'm going to let you pick in terms of which one we should tackle first.
Well, yeah, a couple of things. Well, technology, I'll start there. We've embedded, just like every other provider in the space, invested in technology, especially during this pandemic time. Something that comes into mind is virtual reality Rendeavor. We're using them to, add some smiles, add some experiences to our resident population. That's throughout the, Ohio living too. Steve, in the midst of this pandemic, I know you had Jill Vitale also on here a couple of weeks ago, but she's a partner of ours, and we started a Medicare Advantage Special Needs Plan in January of last year. Just came off of our first year, but talk about starting a Medicare Advantage plan during a pandemic, right? But we did that. But we what we also did, Steve. So we took risk for our Medicare lives, but through technology, we enhanced the care delivery, which is more important at bedside. So that's a technology piece. We're really moving forward with a memory care initiative here at Ohio Living. What can we do to create a best in class? And we are creating a best in class in terms of memory care. And here's where I'm going to go on the outside, is that as we create a best in class model for memory care within Ohio Living, what can we do to introduce interventions, supportive interventions, to someone living in the general community who is afflicted with a cognitive challenge? And through our support, through technology, we have a physician and nurse practitioner vertical at Ohio Living Physician Services. So we can telehealth an NP right into someone's home. And so think about how we can serve older adults who are not living on our campuses, communities, but the majority of the 12.5 million people who live in Ohio. What can we do to enhance their aging experience, whether they come onto our campus communities or not? And so that's what we don't have it all figured out yet, Steve. We will. It's going to take us a while, but and we're plugging along. And thanks to the generosity of our Ohio Living Foundation, we can do that.
Cool. Well, I want to dig a little deeper into it. I'm actually going to give a little bit of a plug. So a few weeks ago, we started a second live stream called Tech Tuesdays. And this coming and Abby Ritchie, who is actually hosting that is part of our team. But her guest next Tuesday is a humanoid-like robot company. And I came across it during CES time. And one of the things that really intrigued me as they were talking about it is that apparently this robot can actually is fine-tuned enough that it can give a human being an injection. So I don't know quite how I feel about having a robot come up and stick me in the arm and give me some medication, but I'm really really intrigued by that. So we're actually going to have these guys on as our guests. Abby's going to have them on next Tuesday at 10:30. I think is when that goes, 10:30 Pacific. So if you're interested, that's sort of for you and for the rest of the audience. But so that's my little commercial plug for that other session we're doing. But are you guys using robots? Where do you see robots in Ohio living? Do you have thoughts about it?
We are not, but I think it's an eventuality. I think that I know other colleagues of mine. I'm thinking of Doug Ledig over at Asbury Group. He's got them and he's experimenting with them. So I think it's an eventuality. From a technology standpoint, we had a great relationship with Third Eye. They're helping us with after-hours physician support their outcomes have been outstanding in terms of mitigating an expensive and a disruptive acute care visit for one of our residents. But no robots today, but I'm looking forward to seeing them give you your flu shot next Tuesday.
Yeah, I actually told them I would go. They're actually out of Colorado, and I actually told them that the next time in Colorado that they're ready to that I'd be ready to try that. I will tell you that they did tell me that it sort of only works under a very controlled condition. That part of it's not quite ready for broad distribution, but it's really exciting stuff because you just think about all these kinds of I dream of a time when you have a robot that's like a super Roomba, right? But it actually goes into a resident room, and there may be several robots, and one mops the floor, and another one cleans the toilets and sanitizes the whole bathroom, and so that you allow humans to do human stuff.
Steve, we have to. If we don't innovate, if we don't continue to innovate, to me, we're going to spiral. And as an industry segment, we have to continue to innovate and to invest in technology. And what concerns me on a bigger picture, as I serve, on leading edge board, it's our reimbursement is not keeping pace with our expenses. So providers, I said, if you heard me, I said, thanks to the generosity of our Ohio Living Foundation. Yep. We have resources for people who have given to us to invest in that technology. But for providers right now who are challenged, don't have the balance sheet strength, they don't have the ability to innovate. And I understand that. But Steve, we have to, for the well-being of our industry today, and even more so tomorrow, we have to embrace that technology. So thanks for highlighting that on our Tech Tuesdays.
So I don't know whether I want to. I'm going to throw this at you, and you can take a pass on it, which is a little unfair. So we didn't talk about it, but as you know, Joe Biden announced some massive nursing home reforms on State of the Union. The long position paper actually came out on Monday. I've written about it already. And it's one of those areas where ACA and Leading Age have kind of taken divergent positions. And I just sort of if you would like to share, if you're willing to share any thoughts on what was proposed.
You better believe it. I'd be more than willing to share my thoughts. I think that, I applaud the Biden administration for improving the overall care. And he called out the nursing home industry, right? No one's going to challenge that. I applaud him with that. However, the quote unquote crackdown agenda that is being articulated now, I take offense to. And what I mean by that is that the agenda is creating a big net where we're all going to get pulled into. And the intent, I read it as well, Steve, on Monday before his address to Congress on Tuesday, is that his intent is to go after the bad actors. Every industry has some bad actors. Well, you know what? With all due respect, target the energies into those bad actors, as opposed to coming after organizations. And I say this humbly and respectfully, like in Ohio Living, and we're under attempt with many others who are doing the right thing. Yes, mistakes happen. We're not perfect. We're not a perfect organization. Never have been, never will be. But yet, we stand by our values. We stand by doing the right thing. That's why I work here, and the community owns this organization, right? All nonprofits, and so there's a lot in there. I was pretty upset on Monday, and I was waiting for more words to come out of President Biden's mouth on Tuesday, but they weren't articulated. But yet, there's an agenda there that is I think going to create significant hardship in this industry. And you know what, Steve, we're hurting already. And so I think he's adding another crack to a struggling industry segment right now. And
what I really like, the thing you said that I really like is that the enforcement should be targeted at the bad actors. And I will tell you that living in California, I'm a little cynical because we seem to be one of probably half a dozen states where we have an unfairly or not unfairly, but disproportionately large number of operators that frankly don't seem to care very much about quality. So I'm probably a little bit more jaded than those of you who are in some other states. But we were talking actually a little bit about it with my team this morning, and Jack Cummings said, what we really need to do is we really need the government to take the position that there are some trusted operators who have proven that they have a track record, and they ought to be kind of left alone to go out and innovate. And we see this in other industries. We've seen, of course, Boeing blew it, but for a long time, Boeing kind of did self-regulation on their aircraft, and Southwest has kind of had some of that until they blew it. And so but we know that happens in other industries where the regulatory people say, we know you guys care so much. You care more about safety than we do, and so we're going to go focus on the problem areas. And I think that would be a great approach.
I agree with you, but we got to be careful with that too. As again, this is a very that skilled nursing segment of our delivery system, very highly regulated, and so I think we have to be careful of the exceptions. However, Steve, what the target is going after the bad actors. Well, then. Right. Surgically appropriate the resources and the strategy towards that, with all due respect. Yep. Not covet the entire industry, to your point. So, yeah.
And I think on the surface, the idea of mandated staffing is great. The question is, where do those staff come from? Does the government provide enough money to create the incentive? And the position paper that came out of the White House really didn't address that issue. And so, there's a lot to be unpacked, and so it could either be wonderful or terrible depending on how they actually implement it, right?
Yeah, and Steve, unfortunately this pandemic has not been conducive to retaining talent in this industry. In fact, it's done just the opposite. And so when you hear those mandated staffing ratios, when you hear the civil monetary penalties increasing exponentially, ridiculously so, organizations are challenged now with workforce. And to your point, which we talked about earlier, you have to innovate. And without that balance sheet, without that even covering your expenses, you can't innovate. So our reimbursement's not keeping pace with our escalation of wages and expenses. So it's a tough time. It's a tumultuous time in this industry, but the half full side of that glass is that, what an honor it is to be able to provide care and support to someone in this country when they need it the most. And what better, I can't ask for a better calling for me in my heart and personally and professionally to support our team.
Right. So we're almost out of time, but I want to actually sort of touch on one other thing. There's a lot of discussion right now about there's a general belief that we baby boomers, are you a boomer? I guess you're probably a young boomer, right? Because you're a bit younger than I am.
Yeah, born in '67. So
yeah. So you're probably on the edge of being a boomer. I'm right smack dab in the middle. But there's sort of this general belief that we boomers will not want to move into the senior living product that's out there today. I'm going to confess that I'm probably one of a fairly rare breed that's not 100% convinced that when I get to be 85 or 90, that I'm going to really want something that's as different as maybe I and the society think. But I just love to have your thoughts on the future and what senior living needs to do. sort of particularly maybe in light of the fact that Disney has announced that they're going to go into at least some version of providing housing for older people. So
are you headed to Margaritaville, Steve?
I'd probably go to Margaritaville before I'd go to Story Brand that Disney is doing.
Yeah, I think to your question is a very good one. I think that I say to our team and publicly too, we've always waited for people to come to us, Steve, and we expected them to come to us. We have to continue to innovate. We have to continue to create lifestyles and kind of mature this industry segment to meet the needs of people who want us tomorrow. And we have to continue to evolve. I think if we stay stagnant, the market's going to change around us, and that's where the Margaritaville is going to pop up. But that constituency and those 1,000-acre communities are going to need care. So what can we do? Go to them, and I think we just have to continue to evolve this our industry as we have been over the years, over the decades.
We have, and I'm actually, I guess in some sense, I'm actually more optimistic about the industry being able to figure it out.
I do too. I hear the optimism.
And it's really hard to try to get a crystal ball out and say, well, this is what we think it should be, because we have no roadmap on this, right? We have not had people with this long health span after age 65. And I'm 67, and so I have a lot of friends who are retiring. I'm probably 5 or 10 years away from doing that, assuming my health is still fine. I love what I'm doing, but the question that I think that the fun, intriguing question is how do I actually how could you as an operator create something that would make my classmates, maybe even make me when I'm 70 years old, say, yeah, I could live in my own home here, but I've got a big yard and I'm doing all these other things where I don't really like going out there and I want to be with friends. And so I think there's opportunity, but I think we're going to get there.
I do too. I share your optimism, and yes, there is no roadmap, but to me, that's exciting because we can invent it, and again, we have an unlimited demand coming at us, Steve. So it's up to us to figure it out, and I even through these tough times and these choppy waters in front of us, I love figuring it out with this team here.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Larry, we are out of time. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the 100 years.
Thanks, Steve.
I wish I could say I could do this again when you hit 200. I don't think I'll be around. You probably won't either, so it'll be up to somebody else, right?
Steve, thanks for doing what you do. Keep it up. We need you.
Thank you very, very much. And with that, we will see you next week. But don't forget about Tech Tuesday and robots like you have never seen before.